Hey there, story lovers. Welcome to the Storytelling Podcast, your cozy corner for captivating tales. I am your host, Alejandra, and today I'm telling you all about the famous Guy Fawkes. If you are from the UK, you know about this character. If you don't, well, continue listening to one of the biggest historic plots to murder the monarchy in the United Kingdom. But before we start, I would like to ask you for your support and click on the follow the subscribe button if you're hearing this episode on YouTube or any podcast platform. And just to let you know that on YouTube, there is the audio version of this episode and also the visual episode. I would like to really appreciate you and thank you for all the lovely reviews you have been leaving on the podcast. It means the world to me. So let's get started. Guy Fawkes stands out in the British history, mainly because of his role on the Gunpowder plot in 1605. Authorities arrested him as he tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament and kill King James I. The plot aimed to end the Protestant rule in England and install a Catholic government. Fawkes and his fellow conspirators planned to set off barrels of gunpowder hidden in the cellars under the Parliament. Religious and political tension drove their actions. Their plan, despite of all the secrecy, failed. And the consequences for Fawkes and the rest were brutal. People still talk about Guy Fawkes, especially around bonfire night. Each November, fireworks and bonfires light up the sky, marking the failed plot and maybe the never-ending struggle for change in England. To give you a little historical context on how the early 17th century in England was the life it was actually a mess. It was a mess of political and religious problems. The Protestant Reformation had split the country, shaping how people thought about Catholicism and the monarchy. Religious groups clashed, especially Catholics and Protestants. The Church of England had broken away from the Pope after the Reformation, but many Catholics refused to let go of their faith. Catholics faced harsh laws and suspicion. The government labeled those who skipped Anglican services as recusants, seeing them as a threat. This tension kept things on edge. The Reformation, sparked by figures like Martin Luther, had changed everything. Elizabeth I made the Protestant Church of England official, with the Act of Supremacy declaring herself its supreme governor, still to the day. After she died in 1603, the question of religious unity still hung up in the air. James I took the throne and inherited a divided nation. Catholics hoped for more freedom, but conflict just simmered just beneath the surface. James I tried to bring England together, but his policies often let Catholics down. He kept strict laws in place, which pushed some people to extreme measures. The Gunpowder Plot in 1605 was a desperate response to oppression. James I's mixed signals only made things worse, fueling resentment and fear among Catholics. What was the origin of this Gunpowder Plot that we still know today, and what were the real motivations behind it? The Gunpowder Plot grew out of deep religious tension in the early 17th century of England. Many Catholic conspirators felt desperate and angry, believing drastic action was their only option. This wasn't just about politics, it was about survival. It was religious oppression, a radicalization pushed the plotters to the edge. And King James I kept harsh restrictions on Catholics, and many hoped for better treatment, but nothing changed. Catholics couldn't openly practice their faith or hold important jobs, for example. The sense of betrayal ran deep, and some decided enough was enough. Anger and frustration grew, and pushing certain individuals to consider extreme solutions, even the assassination of the king. With all these rules towards the Catholic people, where was the Roman Church? Where was the Pope? Because back then, the world was ruled by the Pope and the Church. So Pope Clement VIII, in the early 16th centuries, urged Catholics to stand against Protestant rules. This Roman resolution inspired some to push for change and radicalize others. So they were doing actually the same that James was doing on other countries. And Robert Catesby, a prominent figure, became convinced that violence was only and the justified way to restore Catholicism. The group's conversations turned from protest to active plotting. They started to see killing James I as their only way out. It's extreme, but it's how desperate things sometimes feel and felt within them. And Robert Catesby led these secret meetings and recruited trusted allies. He wanted to make sure that they have enough support. Guy Fawkes was skilled with explosives and joined the group. They decided to state opening the Parliament was the perfect time for the maximum effect. They stashed gunpowder in the cellar below Parliament, and the level of planning shows just how determined and cornered they felt. So basically, there was going to be a state opening Parliament with the whole monarchy, the whole family, and more ministers. And they decided that on that specific day, which normally is on the 5th of November in the UK, and the creator of this plot was Robert Catesby, and Guy Fawkes was the skilled explosive man, if you know what I mean, in the group. And they basically stashed everything, all the gunpowder, on the cellar just below the Parliament. And the cellar is actually below the room where the monarchy, the whole family and the whole ministers was going to be. So, simple and flawless, right? Wrong. The plot brought together key figures, and each of them have their own reasons and roles. You know, the gang just joins, and some of them have their roles and what to do, etc. And their stories give us a window of what they drove with. Now, let's talk about the whole team. Let's figure out the whole team about with this plot. So the group was composed by, first, Guy Fawkes, because it's the one that we talk, and about Guy Fawkes, or what was called Guido Fawkes, was born in New York in 1570. He served as a soldier and was part of the Catholic community fighting against the Protestant group. His military background made him the explosives guy. Fawkes watched over the gunpowder beneath Parliament. He set up everything, he made the connections, and the authorities caught him on November the 5th in 1605 as he guarded the stash. So he was hand-caught, if we can say this, pun intended. And his arrest blew the whole plot wide open. Then we have the mastermind, Robert Catesby. Robert Catesby was born in 1573 and came from a wealthy family, but felt deeply betrayed by English treatment to Catholics. He brought the group together and set the plot in motion. Catesby recruited key players, including Fawkes, and kept everyone focused. He didn't survive the fallout. Governments forced to kill him in 1605. So he's one off. The mastermind was one off. Then we have Thomas Percy, or Thomas Wintour. Thomas Percy was born in 1560 and was close to Catesby and helped him fund the operation. He was the money man. He played a big part in getting the explosives and planning the attack. Thomas Wintour was born in 1571 and brought in extra support and helped coordinate the conspirators. He was a key link between the members of the group, so he was the organizer, basically. We have additional conspirators, such as Francis Tresham. Francis Tresham was connected to the Catesby family and joined the planning, but had his doubts, and he was more cautious than the rest. We need to have one of the cautious, right? And we have other names. For example, we have John Wright, Christopher Wright, and Robert Keyes. They also play their parts, and each one of them brought to the table, hoping for a dramatic change of England. All of them were Catholic, and all of them were caught. But Guy Fawkes was the worst one. Okay. The conspirators put a lot of effort into the planning. They needed explosives, they needed a safe hiding spot, and a good understanding of London and the Westminster. Talking about statistics, if you want to blow up the Parliament, if you know the Parliament as it is now, you need a serious amount of gunpowder, and we are talking about the 1700s. So connections with merchants and traders, all of them, they help to get what they need. Actually, everyone just knew about this. And they managed to actually stash 36 barrels in cellars under the parliament of gunpowder. It's a lot. And hiding the gunpowder so close to the target was risky, but they pull it off. One, it was risky because you were caught with barrels. It wasn't a tiny box, and actually was under the parliament to get to the cellars. And actually, all that amount, and if we think that basically every single person smoked back then, it was risky. It was risky. Location was everything, of course. And they actually, take a look at this, they rented the cellar right under the House of Lords, which was known for being secure and out of the way. How can you rent a cellar under the House of Lords, right? And the spot inside the Palace of Westminster, and I'm laughing because, it was the 1700s, but actually this makes sense in the sense of, it was actually so mastermind, and they even rented the cellar back then, and the place where they rented the cellar actually gave them direct access to the Palace of Westminster, and it was a clever move. And well, it was a clever move back then until things fall apart, of course, and we know how it ended. But clever. And also, I can now understand why you have now so many layers of security after this. And actually, this brought the layers of security. I'm going to talk about that, but clever. And the London and Westminster layout actually helped the conspirators to stay hidden. And lawmakers, they gather in Westminster, making it, the obvious target. The guys were going to be there. They knew they were going to be there. Of course, I have to give a reference that, of course, there was guards patrolling the area, so the plotters had to stay sharp. So their local knowledge kept them on one step ahead, at least for a while. And when authorities uncovered the gunpowder plot, it was thanks to a couple of anonymous letters and quick action by key people. The Montague letter played a huge part in stopping the major disaster. But what was this? So in October is 1605, remember that this was in November, and October 1605, Lord Montague, sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, received a strange letter warning him to skip the state opening of Parliament. The warning was vague but serious. So Lord Montague took it to King James I's advisors, who immediately realized that the threat was real, and the government ordered a full investigation. This anonymous letter, when surfaced, added to the panic. So it hinted that something terrible was going to happen at the parliament on that day, and these warnings made the authorities act fast. They knew they had to move it because otherwise it would be too late. Then, on November the 5th of 1605, officials searched the cellars under the parliament, and the yeomen of the guard led the way. So this was like the elite of the guards. And the guards, they found Guy Fawkes, barrels of gunpowder, and an iron lantern. And he didn't stand a chance. He was caught in the act, basically. Fawkes' arrest revealed the full plot and the motives behind it, and the authorities acted quickly, and thanks to those timely warnings. I'm curious about who actually sent those letters. Someone that was within the group, of course, or some of the merchants, because actually everybody knew about the plot, to be honest. And when the authorities capture Guy Fawkes, he actually tried to blow up the parliament. He tried. He was caught. He wanted to, His arrest kicked off a series of interrogations that exposed the gunpowder plot in detail. And Fawkes stayed defiant at first, refusing to give up names. But after a while, and under torture, of course, he confessed, giving up the details to authorities needed and round up the rest of the people. That's why we know the names. When they arrested Guy Fawkes, he was crouched near the barrels of gunpowder, and this is all related, so this is actually written. And Sir William Watt was the lieutenant of the Tower of London and took Fawkes into custody. And the guards acted fast, knowing how dangerous the situation was. And when Fawkes had a lantern and a slow match with him, you know, there was the suspicion, and they started to notice what was inside of all the barrels and the huge explosion that, it could take the house down, literally. After Fawkes and the other plotters were arrested, the authorities began a series of charges against them. The trials in 1607 were intense, and with key legal figures determined to make an example out of them. The group faced charges of treason, of course, and high treason. They aimed to kill the King James I and the family and destroy the Houses of Parliament, a direct attack on the monarchy and the state. And treason ranked amongst the worst crimes imaginable. The conspirators, including Robert Catesby and Thomas Winter, were charged from plotting to replace the king with a Catholic monarch. The authorities saw the plot as so severe that only harshest punishment would do. The trial started on January 1605 with Robert Cecil, the Earl of Salisbury, taking charge of the proceedings and determined to see the plotters punished. Westminster Hall hosted the hearings. Many confessions came under extreme pressure, making it easy to the court to condemn the accused and proceeds. The process was swift and honestly, it was merciless. The punishment for treason was brutal. It was hanged, drawn, or quartered. You make your pick. Authorities wanted to make a public spectacle of it, to send, a message and a clear warning to anyone thinking of rebellion. And then on January the 30th, on 1606, several conspirators met their end. They were hanged almost to death, then disemboweled, and finally cut into 4 parts. Fun. Huge crowds gathered to watch, and the execution served as a chilling reminder of what happened to traitors. That grim day closed the chapter on the Gunpowder Plot. But what about when, after all of this was known to the public, to the people? What happened? So this Gunpowder Plot actually shook the British society and the government to its core. It led to strict laws against Catholics and changed how people saw them for generations. They even also left a mark on the British culture, especially through the figure of Guy Fawkes. After the plot, actually, it became even harder to the Catholics. The government clamped down on Catholics even harder. New laws brought harsh penalties for attending Catholic Mass and required everyone to go to the Anglican services. The 1606 Popish Plot Act made it a crime for Catholics to attend or promote Mass. These laws isolated Catholics, making life miserable and tense for many families. It's no surprise that this only deepened the dividing the country between Catholics and Protestants, and fueled centuries of tensions. The plot changed public opinion overnight. Many Protestants began to view Catholics as a real threat to the nation, as the bad guys. Fawkes and his group got branded as traitors. Bonfire nights events sprang up, with people burning effigies of Guy Fawkes on bonfires, a tradition that still goes on till this very much day, on November the 6th, even though most folks barely think about its roots or religious conflicts. Majority of people just, gather everyone, make a barbecue, some s'mores on the bonfires, and they don't actually tell the story about Guy Fawkes or how the plot ended or started, actually, or who was in the plot. Some people don't know, actually. And Guy Fawkes turned out to be a symbol of rebellion, for better or for worse, and some people actually saw him as a kind of a folk hero, despite his grim end. And in recent years, Fawkes masks popped up in protests, especially with groups like Anonymous. He's become a sign of defiance and reminder of how histories can twist a villain into a symbol of resistance. And this happens a lot in our history, picking up a real villain, a real bad guy, and turn them into symbol of resistance. And you know the mask. There was this movie called V from Vengeance. It's a white mask with slashed eyes and a mustache and a grin, like a smile. So that is the mask that I'm talking about. I'm going to leave it here on the video, on the visual video, actually. But about commemorating a little bit more, the commemoration about the bonfire and the modern tradition. So we celebrate the bonfire on the 5th of November and marks the failure of the gunpowder plot. It's a lively tradition, so normally we have fireworks, we have bonfires, we have rituals, and throughout the whole night. And actually, this is not something very modern, because after the gunpowder plot and after everything that went off on 1606, every November the 5th, they started to create the bonfire night. And they started to cheer the king's survival, and they actually just started calling it not only bonfire night, but they started calling it the Guy Fawkes night. So the guy was a failure, but actually has his whole nights and holiday, basically. And this is a slice of the English history that reminds everyone of the failed assassination attempt. And over time, the night evolved into a community event, and it's even more fun and togetherness, so everyone gathers around. But on the 1607, Parliament made the 6th of November an official day of Thanksgiving. So not the US Thanksgiving as normal, but the Thanksgiving of having the king present and not in danger. So that kind of Thanksgiving. Share a little bit more about the tradition that is the bonfire night or the Guy Fawkes night in the UK. So, for example, local councils can put up on big fireworks shows normally, and you have sparkles everywhere, kids and adults wave around and making sparkly trails in the dark, and people gather around bonfires, swapping stories and warming up in the chilly air night. So, it's bringing everyone, everyone brings snacks, etc., and we watch the fireworks. And some people actually still burn effigies. Some communities create the guys from old clothing and straws and toss them to the bonfire. Of course, this is an act of bit eerie. Personally, I haven't seen it. I stay with the fireworks and the sparkles, but I haven't seen anyone from my community or the communities that I have been living in the UK. But communities do what communities need to do. And guys, this was today's episode. I hope you liked it. Comment below and share your thoughts. It's always nice to hear from you guys, and I promise that I have other episodes ready for you here weekly at the Storytelling Podcast. The last week, I'm really happy because it was one of my original stories and it had so many downloads and views. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to continue to write original stories to share with you guys, and thank you for listening. And please remember that if you'd like to send your stories or special topics to be shared in the next episodes, please send it to the Storytelling Podcast 8080 at gmail.com, or follow me on social media at the Storytelling Podcast Official. And before you go, if you haven't done it already, I would love for you to click, follow the subscribe button, and why not create a review here on the podcast, and see you on the next episode.